I have this feeling when I do any Beethoven symphony, but particularly with the Sixth, that it's my absolute favorite of all. It's hard to say, and luckily we don't have to choose, but there's something so warm and so human about the Sixth Symphony. It's called the Pastoral Symphony. There are titles that Beethoven gave to the movements, feelings of joy on going to the countryside and seen by the brook and different images, but he also specified that it wasn't really storytelling. It was more about the emotional feeling that one has in relation to nature. And I find it so inspiring that Beethoven was able to write this piece that has some sort of program, and you can hear the brook, you can hear the peasants dancing in the scherzo, you can obviously with the storm they're terrifying thunder sounds, and finally the timpani comes in and has these incredible, literally force of nature type effects. But finally it's really about how humans relate to nature and about the feeling of awe and respect and joy that man can have in relation to nature. And it's to me an incredibly powerful work in that way. Magnus Lindberg is a composer whom I've known for a long time, but I've gotten to know particularly well in the last years because he's been our composer in residence at the New York Philharmonic. This has meant that we've done a lot of his music, but it's really been exciting to feel the expression of the in-residence part of the title. He's spent a lot of time around the orchestra, and the musicians have gotten to know him, and we've been able to experience his musicianship as a pianist and as a conductor. He's really a total musician and an amazing composer besides. This work that we're playing, EXPO, is the piece, literally the first piece that I conducted when I started my tenure as music director in New York. It was written for the occasion, and it's, I think, I'm glad he chose to write an optimistic piece because that's how I wanted to start out my tenure, but it really is a very positive, brilliant, colorful work. It starts out with a kind of crack of a whip, and it's as if he's saying, okay, now we're getting going, and from that moment it just tears forward. There's a lot of very quick music in the piece, but one effect that Magnus has talked about that I find fascinating is how quick music can ultimately feel slow. And what he does in order to make this happen is the scurrying notes have individual importance at the beginning, so you really are aware of the quickness and how many notes there are. But as the piece goes on, they become more and more part of a wash of sound, a kind of texture, and you're aware of longer spans of time, longer, more sweeping gestures. So the music, in fact, is going very quickly, but you become, it's more expansive, it's more epic in a way, and it's a really brilliant effect, and I think difficult to realize, but he's such a great composer that it's all there. Christopher Rouse, fantastic composer. I've always loved his music. I've done quite a bit of it. I've made a couple of recordings of his pieces. This is actually the first time that I'm doing the Oboe Concerto, and it's a great pleasure to be working with Richard Woodhams, one of my heroes, somebody I looked up to for many years when I was a student at Curtis, and ever since then when I've had the chance, the privilege really of working with him, it's always a joy. I know he'll bring something very special to this piece, and what, for me, characterizes Chris's music, and I think will pair so well with what Mr. Woodhams brings to it, is a real honesty and a real truth in what he writes. Chris is a very serious guy. He can laugh and be funny, but actually his music is almost invariably introspective and sees the complexity, shall we say, of life. And he's one of the rare composers who is really hearing what he writes. It's very true. Nothing is for show, and nothing is fake. And Richard Woodhams is the kind of musician who really tries to make a statement with everything that he says, and of course he also has the incredible technical capacity. It's a very, very difficult work. There are many notes. It scurries along at frantic pace, and it's really unplayable for all except the really greatest instrumentalists. But it's at heart a wonderful, important human piece of art, and I'm really happy to be able to be doing it now. Coming back to Philadelphia is always like a homecoming for me. With the orchestra, I feel very close to many of the musicians, and it's really striking, in fact, how many of them I know, and how many of them I went to school with, and of course how many I got to know when I was subbing as an extra violinist in the orchestra for all those years back when I was at Curtis. Philadelphia has a very unique and powerful situation, I think, for music, and certainly for students. The relationship between Curtis and the Philadelphia Orchestra, not to mention the other music schools in the area. Temple University is obviously very well and closely connected to the Philadelphia Orchestra as well. For me, that's a very important kind of situation for music in general, to have a synergy and a connection and a meaningful dialogue and interchange between the educational institutions and the professional music organizations, such as the Philadelphia Orchestra. This, for me, was very powerful when I was a student. I got to play as a substitute violinist, as I said, but also to hear the concerts one after another and to see the musicians who are on the faculty at these schools in the hallway between classes and to see them teach and to have that kind of important connection. It's really very powerful, and I'll never forget it. I think I was lucky to be able to experience it.